gorgeous faces. It's so nice to see everyone. I've been looking forward to this call tonight, you guys. Here we go, here we go. Let everyone in. All my favorite people are here. Why are you still in the waiting room? Okay, everyone, I'll be adding people. I know this is going to be a wild call. Mostly I know this because I've got to confess, Julia, and could you do something about this? It gets a bit tiring. Every single person in the narrator community goes on and on and on about you. You are the narrator's favorite narrator. I remember I had a
So
coaching
sweet.
session with Hillary Huber. She said that every word, she loves your narration so much because every single word is so carefully thought out and perfectly spoken. And that's it. Basically, everyone just loves you, basically. So I wasn't intimidated, not at all. I thought, well, she's okay. She's nice. I like, her narration sounds great, And then I went on your website to do the promo video and I saw the acting and I thought, oh my God, that's her. I've watched her. She's like a brilliant actress. And then I read some of the reviews and then the whole scholar thing. And then I was like, right, okay, no cracks at all. But the thing about you is, I think you're well liked, not just because you're supremely talented and seem to have the golden touch, but because you seem like such a nice person. That's the thing. I mean,
with this community, I am.
they wouldn't be singing your praises so much because having that level of success brings jealousy out in people, but not in your case. And so you must have seriously work hard on building relationships to make sure that doesn't happen. So I want to start with 10-year-old Julia.
Yes. Okay.
Walk me through what was,
okay.
Yes, we're going back in time. What was 10-year-old Julia thinking, doing? Was she quiet? Was she driving her parents crazy? I don't know, the word intrepid comes to mind and I don't know why.
Okay. I think my parents would agree with that. I was acting. I loved it. I was working in the market that I grew up in. I was just like, I knew that's what I wanted to do from a very, very young age. And I went after it. I also was a massive reader, huge reader. And so those things were working in concert. I was an only child. So I was really left to my own devices to entertain myself. So there was a lot of writing my own stories and acting them out kind of thing.
Makes sense.
So yeah, so I was pretty much me, just smaller with a higher voice.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Salem, Oregon.
Oh, very cool. That's very kind of American.
It's very, especially at that time. I mean, it's the capital of the state, but it's now Salem kind of is a little bit of a suburb of Portland, but it certainly didn't feel that way when I was growing up. It was very much its own culture and suburbia. Yeah.
So you grew up, you're right. When did you start acting? At what age?
I mean, 5, I was doing children's theater. And then I started doing on camera at 9.
Wow.
So, yeah. And so I just felt it was just always something that it was just the thing I was going to do. It's wasn't even a question.
Are you extremely driven or are you extremely disciplined or both?
I'm both. Okay. I'm actually not that ambitious. This is kind of where the turn came, where I had a taste of fame and I had the kind of gig that everyone wants and it was the gig I wanted. It was
quit and you went to school. I was like, really?
I know. But here's the thing, the show that I was on for high school was so well written and was so well acted and was so well produced and such a good show and such a good team and such a good environment and all of that it really set the bar truly too high for me, and everything else that I would do or I was being offered at the time was just not that interesting. there was a turning point where like I was doing stuff on that show that kids don't get to do on TV. You know, you're usually like wallpaper. You walk in, you're like, "Hi, Mom," and you leave. I was actually able to
Acting.
act.
Yeah.
And everything else that was coming after that was, I was in that really like the transitional stage of being a minor to turning 18. And especially, I think there's been enough documentaries recently, like revisiting how we treated women in media in the early aughts. It was not great. And I was really a square peg kind of situation where people, they wanted me to, you know, do the really exploitive stuff and like shed the child actor image. And I was like, I wasn't an image. I was a fucking child. Sorry. Can we swear on this?
Yep. Go ahead.
My father was a firefighter. I come by this honestly. You know, it was like, I was a child.
Were you having discussions with your parents? Were you kind of like, because as an only child, were you more like an equal with your parents having discussions?
Yes, and my parents were also older, like not older by today's standards, but like, you know, they were in their mid to late 30s when they had me. I was an only child. I was really like an adult, and treated as such. And this was just not a thing I was comfortable with. Plus all of the like coming of age stories that were supposedly so groundbreaking and so, you know, so interesting, were all written by, you know, middle-aged men working out some kind of fantasy. And so I just was like, I don't think this is actually, I don't think it's as good as you think it is. And I don't want any part of it. And I kind of had this, I always wanted to go to school. That was kind of a non-negotiable thing. Like my parents were like, if you're going to do this and you're making this money, like that's going to school.
Right.
So that's, you know, that was like an agreement we made. And I was totally fine with that. I wanted to. But I really honestly thought that if I could leave and go to school and get the degree and, you know, use that part of, develop that part of me, that I would then be regarded as special as I thought I was. You know, I was coming at like 18 of people being like, you know, why, you think you're different from all these other girls kind of thing. And I was like, well, I'm just a very intellectual person, but you wouldn't know that because I don't have any proof of that. I don't have a degree. And I somehow thought that like
self-belief. And can I just say, you're the only one I've ever met. I mean, I might be wrong. And if there is a crack, believe me, my job on this call is to get to it, but in the nicest way. But
good luck.
You have self-belief. And the thing is, I know that is such a woo-woo term, but it is every adult I know, every single adult I know suffer just because life, right? And I think where you landed with your parents helped you develop that.
This business will 110% find that and exploit it. For me, and this is what I give my parents absolute full credit for, I was loved 110%. I didn't need this business to love me. And that is so much the story of child actors when we, you know, break it down into what happens. Oh my God, what happened to them? So many actors, this business self-selects people who need validation. And for me, my entire relationship to this industry has been, I just want to act. And I will put up with a certain level of shenanigans in order to do that. But there's like a very firm line for me. And that line just kept as I kept getting older and realizing that all of these people who said they knew what they were doing actually don't know what they're doing. Right. No one in this industry knows what they're doing. And as I just started, that became very clear to me. My tolerance level just got really, really low. And it's just not a healthy, for me, it just wasn't a healthy environment. And I wasn't getting anything out of it that I couldn't live without.
As I interrupt you, my brain is firing on a million different, first of all, the thought about realizing that nobody knows that I kind of probably know better than the people that I've been spending a fortune to like show me what I know. Yeah. And then the difference I think is that I have, like many others, the cracks in the self-belief. I have like extreme confidence in a lot of areas and then lack of self-belief in others. And so when you have that, then when you have complete self-belief in your ability to handle things and to guide your life, and then you realize that other people don't know what they're doing, you know that you do, and you can fall back on that. I think you've made me realize, I realized others don't know what they're doing. So I went to Google because I'm not sure I know what I'm doing either. Someone's got to know in the room. But I think also not just acting, your self-belief carries you through. And when I said finding the crack, I'm fascinated by because I believe that everyone is born. It's the natural state of being, having that kind of self-belief. But I also believe that it is chipped away at you.
Yes.
And unfortunately, when people are children, their parents are gods to most kids, because that's how we learn what the world is. And they're doing their best almost all the time. They're doing their very best. But as you said, and I think you were lucky, a lot of parents are very young themselves. They've barely conquered the world themselves. So, but I also think that people that were lucky like you, the other trap it seems you avoided, they have the self-belief, they get through life. Other people don't like that. That self-belief infringes on other people's comfort zones.
Yes. And
you've got to be strong, not just in this business, because I've been in the corporate world, in the world. You've got to be strong and protect it. I mean, have you not found that as much as you believe in yourself, you have to have a strong, how do you protect that so that if you're tired or stressed, you don't lose it or give it away?
Yeah, I think that there's a difference. I think like what I'm hearing from you, and it's prompting this idea that like there is a difference between self-belief and arrogance or overconfidence. Right. So like for me, I worked very hard to develop the skill set that I developed. And that's something that isn't really up for debate. Like I cannot be right for a role. I'm not right for most roles. I mean, that's what I love about audiobooks is like they just give me the books. But I never took that personally because it was like, look, I have a certain skill set and you either want it or you don't. And it's not really a reflection on me. And that's I've felt that way. It's also it's a confidence or a self-belief in the fact that I don't need this. That was a big turning point where, so, you know, because it's high school, I was, you know, educated. I had a studio teacher who I adore and who was amazing, but like I had certain gaps in education because I just wasn't being educated traditionally. For me, it happened to be the right thing. I mean, again, only child, like tutoring. It's why I did well at Oxford. It's that system works really well for me.
Yeah.
But here I was going into, you know, a very good liberal arts college with a bunch of kids who went to like prep schools, and I didn't know that I was going to be competitive. And what I discovered there was like, if I just did the work that was asked of me and I did it to the best of my ability, I could learn and I could grow and I could get better and I could make it happen. And that was so at odds with our business, the business of acting, I should say, where that's not part of the calculus. Like how hard you work or how good you are,
but it
or your
be.
effort. Yeah, I know, but like it's not. So like for me, that was the mind. Then that's when I came back into the industry. And that's what I mean, where I was looking at a lot of people who were making a lot of decisions. I mean, that's the thing to, I think, understand about the people making casting decisions. They're terrified. They are trying, they are trying to justify their job. And they don't make decisions often from a place of what is best or what they believe in. They are making decisions out of fear.
Yeah, and from a place of what they've seen looked like it succeeded last time.
Yes, and so that's why we get
safest route.
And that's why when we move into, you know, in the last 10, 15 years, the metrics of social media and follow, like it was suddenly they had data on which to like make decisions, and that didn't help anybody. But that was just a system I just wanted to opt out of, because when I put my mind to something and try to do something, like if I have control over it, I can get it done, or I can find out why I can't. Like I can just reach a certain place and go,
Can you
I
not
don't think
create your own work in acting? And
you can, but you still need other people. I mean, I certainly didn't have the financial wherewithal to make my own stuff and
yeah,
distribute it and do that. I mean, the people who have had success with that have been pretty well bankrolled. Um, and it also would have had to have been like my entire life. And there's just too many other things I'm interested in,
yeah.
So I'm not saying it's not possible, but I didn't love it enough. I certainly didn't love the taste of fame that I'd gotten was like so unappealing to me. And so then there just came a point where it's like, well, then what am I doing this for? If I want to get to the point where people are offering me great
Yeah.
roles and I'm getting to do all of this, and then in order to do that, I've kind of got to give up my life. What am I even striving for here?
So do you feel like you're on a daily basis, like when you're writing your book, when you're going through, are you setting a goal and then striving toward that goal? Or are you living in the moment and enjoying the process and refining I mean, it's possible to do both, obviously, but what is the element that calls to you the most? Are you striving for doing the very best you can in the moment at whatever you're doing?
That's a good question. I think it's both. I do, because there's the realities of deadlines and things like that. And then there's the grace you have to give yourself. Like, I am not a perfectionist. I'm not. I can only hold myself to like the standard that I am feeling on any given day. But I'm a workhorse. I will say that, often to a detriment, and certainly now as I feel like I'm slowing down a little bit. Like, my ability to spin that many plates is I'm losing it. I'm losing it a little bit. So for me, I've just got to remember to be easy on myself, to forgive myself when something isn't right. And again, having the confidence that I'm going to figure it out. Like, it
I
may not
think
be right
that's
today, but I'll figure it out.
I think that's what I might be wrong, but I think it was Will Smith that's got that famous thing where he said that he might not be more talented than the guy next to him, and he might not be more gifted or better for the role. But if he gets on a treadmill and that guy gets on a treadmill, either he's going to be on the treadmill in the end, or he's going to die on the treadmill, but
Right.
he's not going to
Right.
stop working. And I admire work. I am a bit of a workaholic, and I do need to, for mental health,
Yeah.
at some point figure it out. But I would rather be working. I had a thought. I was like stressed and worried about something, and I went in, and I was lucky that it was something I could lose myself in recording. Just that day, I got lucky. It was like, and I remember thinking, creativity is going to save me. It's the way out. All this trying to meditate and yoga, I'm not getting it. It's just another thing I'm failing at.
Well, I think
But
that's where you find your own, like, what works for you in terms of balance and what you
yeah,
need. Like, a lot of people have, asked me, it's like, well, are you gonna, are you an author now? Are you just gonna? And I was like, no, first of all, I have no desire to write like a book a year and just like churn them out. Then that takes the fun away. And I also need this. Like, I need the booth time where it's just
yeah.
me interpreting text, not generating it. That is a different part of my brain that is back to the performance part. Like, I don't think if I weren't doing this job, I don't think I could have walked away from the pursuit of on camera so easily, right? It's because I genuinely love it. And if I weren't acting all the time, we'd have a problem.
So you have a stitched together identity that's
Yeah.
strong, that you've had your whole life, and you go back to it. And through that self, the grounded identity, you pursue the things you love at the time you love them.
Yeah. And I think that I've learned a lot about impermanence over the years, and I've learned that, there's no guarantee of anything. So, like, when I don't love something anymore, I'm okay to move on. I just, again, it's like I know that I will figure it out. I will figure out something to do. I'm interested. There's a quote, it was attributed to Gene Kelly, but I'm sure it existed long before him, but it's just, be interested in everything.
Yeah.
And that's genuinely how I feel. Like I can get interested in so many things. And if I walked away from all of this, I mean, I tend to do this. It seems to be like every 10 years or so, I just kind of slough off whatever I was doing and focus on something else. And there's a part of me that's like, you know, there's a number of things I could do, and I'm just interested in things.
I wonder if, I mean, first, that's my father. My father, we grew up with, it was a different thing every day. The goats, we were in the suburbs with a pool and we had goats. The vegetable garden, the front yard, the, hanging weird and pot. I mean, he was an artist, he was different languages. And I remember asking someone years later, oh yeah, my father must have grown up on a farm. He learned all these things. He's from Italy. And the guy said, no, he grew up in Rome. He was a city boy. There's no reason he should know any of this stuff. And I love that. I find those people, because I inherited a bit of that, but you'll never be bored, ever, because you're bored. In love with life and what, but it also occurs to me, hearing you talking, that it's very simple, isn't it? It's what we said earlier about you growing up without the burden of the stuff people pile on kids when they're little. So because of it feels pure. I mean, I'm sure you have bad days and, want to punch the neighbor or whatever, but it feels pure that, the way you approach it, I'm doing it. And then if you add in the ingredient of hard work, I wonder if the reason the things you do, of course you have talent. I mean, of course you have talent. I believe that people love things because there's a talent calling to be used. That's my own personal belief. But I wonder if a big part of your massive success, I mean, we can agree that everything you do seems to the things that we all know about seem to be very successful. And I wonder if subconsciously we're hearing someone doing something they love for the joy of it and working hard, because that's what we all want in this world, that feeling, isn't it? And I wonder if subconsciously we hear that in your narrating, we read that in your writing. Can I shout out, I told you I might want to shout out if he's on the call. I don't know if he made the call, but Landon Beach is on the call. And I can say, Landon, that's what I read in your book. And I said to Julia before the call that you might be joining and that you had shouted out because your books came out on the same day.
That is crazy.
It is. I think it's wonderful. 2 books about narrators came out on the same day. But the thing I'd said, that the Landon's enthusiasm and love for what he was doing. And I think that when you put that into your work, it's like cooks. If you hate it, it's not going to taste very good.
You can taste
right?
the love in the food. You can taste the love in the food. Yeah. I mean, I think that, look, I think you're right in that I really don't, early on in my career and, taking just any book that was offered to me and, building that up and doing that. But it was overwhelming. It was too much, but I always loved the work. And that's kind of that's what I'm saying, in that if there comes a point when I don't love something, I'm out of it, because I think it affects the product, and I think it affects other people's love of it. And I don't need to be doing it. And that's what I mean by I'm not going to be doing a book a year, because I can tell when authors that do that, I can feel it, the love leaching out of what they're doing, because publishing is a hard, terrible business. And there's only so long, it's like acting, there's only so long that you can say, well, I'm just doing it for the love of it, when it's that hard and that unfair.
Yeah. This is so inspiring, because being a workaholic, I take too much on. I always take too much on in life, like just as a human being.
Yeah.
And it is hard to hold on to that core. What is it? Your North Star. Do you know what I mean? That might be the wrong word, but it's very inspiring to hear you talk. It is.
Well, I'm glad, but I mean, I think that there's a lot of things that I have not pursued. There's a lot of, opportunities that I didn't do. I think that is what animates me. I have to really love something, and if I don't, I'm just not doing it. Like, yeah.
So teaching yourself, because you were already an actress, as were a lot of narrators,
Yeah.
Are there any lessons or things that you learned, revelations on the journey of narrating as many books as you've narrated, things that you wish you could go back and tell yourself 500 books ago in your style and your...
Yeah. So, this is okay. This is where I sound the most obnoxious probably in the whole interview, but I will say that like I took to this like a fish to water. Like nothing has ever been more natural to me.
But see,
Like,
that's not arrogance. It's what I was saying. That's confidence and arrogance. And the thing is no matter what you do, even if it's just simple confidence, that's good. We should all do that because it helps, because then we can learn and pull ourselves up with that. But people that are very insecure will still try to chip away at just normal confidence. It doesn't have to be arrogance because they
yes.
feel like it takes away. So we should all say, hey, I'm really good at this, for the things we're really good at.
Yeah. And I don't have a problem doing that. I think it's just like in other aspects of my life, I've worked really hard. Like I said, with acting in general, with education, like I worked really hard to be good at it. Writing, I've worked really hard to be good at it. This was like I was just sort of good at it. I've worked to get better. Like there have been things I've learned. I mean, I would hope so. And also that's partially me. Like if I'm not learning anything anymore, that's when I get bored. That's when I start to fall out of love with it. That's when I'm done. So like in the last couple of years, I've set myself certain tasks with certain books that are like little personal goals of things that I want to do. So like I've talked about this before, so it might be repetitive to people who have listened to podcast interviews or something, but 2 books last year couldn't be more different, but I like approached them with goals in mind. And one was People We Meet on Vacation, where it was a rom-com, it was fun and it was fantastic. And Emily Henry is just a writer, just a reader's dream. But I was like, this reads so much like a Nora Ephron screenplay to me that I want to essentially attack this performance as if I were directing the film. And that's kind of the way that I took it on, where I was like, I don't start recording until I can like block this scene in my head and see these characters doing this. So like a task for me that was just a kind of thought experiment in that way. And then the other one was Addie LaRue, where there were a number of things that were going to be difficult about that book. And I was very worried about the way my performance might be perceived, because to do justice to the book, I was opening myself up for what I thought might be some criticism if people weren't paying close enough attention. Like they would think my accent was going in and out. When in actuality, it's just bouncing back and forth between what she sounded like 300 years ago and what she sounds like now, and her accent has softened.
Right.
And I decided to just trust the listener on that. And I wish I'd figured that out sooner. I wish I'd figured out trust the listener. Like you don't have to push these things. And also it's not about you. This isn't a one-woman show. Like this is an opportunity to be a conduit between the author and the listener.
Those are big pushing lessons. Energy in everything, that pushing energy is just it's lethal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you see an actor. That's why there was a comment that like the SAG-AFTRA icon, like the logo, which is like, somebody like this stepping onto a stage, and someone made a comment that's like, it's that moment right before the casting director tells you to pull it inside a little bit. And like, to me, it's just so funny that that's like the emblem of our union, because it's just like no performance has ever benefited from that energistic push. Like just keep it inside.
And nothing has. All those woo-woo things that like I hate so much that I keep listening to anyway. Live your life, exercise. I've got to push energy. I always have. try too hard. And with everything, like I used to fall. I would be like walking and I'd like try too hard and I'd like trip over myself.
Try too hard to walk.
And it's very much a part of my nature, but it is not a safe place. It's the opposite of what we were saying about being grounded and being kind of energetically.
I think you just learn the things that are in your control and that aren't in your control. And that's where I finally had to remove myself from the toxicity of Hollywood, only because it was just the frustration of not being in control of truly my destiny. I had a lot of problems with the fact that it was like, I decided to do this when I was 5. Like, this is my dream. This is what I've trained for. This is what I'm good at. And you coming out of wherever the fuck.
I just saw the audience. I saw the audience.
Like, you get to decide, I don't get to do this. Like, I had to remove myself. That is a toxic relationship to me. I had to remove myself from that relationship and put my energy elsewhere. That's just, it's as simple as that. And it doesn't mean I'll never do it again. People ask me to do things. I do them when I want to do them. But that organizing your life around really a roulette table, not for me. Not for me. I learned that about myself.
When you were acting, and you know how you had some early success and it went into fame, was there like a moment that you remember thinking, oh, things have changed? Or was it so gradual that you just woke up and you realized it had happened a year ago and now here you were?
No, I mean, it's pretty apparent. Like, the day after the pilot aired, someone recognized me in the grocery store, and I like went into the bathroom and threw up.
Really? Were you that uncomfortable with it?
I was that uncomfortable with suddenly not having my anonymity and like not having, my father was a firefighter, but he was also politically active, and he got talked into running for the State House of Representatives. And I would go with him in canvas, and we would drive by like lawn signs with his name on it. And he would just be like, that makes me so uncomfortable. And I didn't get it then, but like only a few years later, I got it, of just like that name recognition of like advertising yourself in that way and having people know who you are was very, very, very uncomfortable to me. And so I got better at it. I got better at handling it. It's also, I was younger and like, I didn't want people looking at me in general. But so it's better now. Like, I can handle it gracefully when it happens. But at the time, it was overnight. And I think that's also part of what's really disconcerting about it.
Yeah.
It's just, reality is just different one day.
And you lived in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what about the expat thing? Did you miss any American things when you got over here?
Here's what's sneaky about the Brits. So speaking of fame, what I loved was that as far as I knew, the show did not air in England. It aired in France. At that time, we were only talking about a few years removed, and I still very much looked the way I did when I was on the show. So I would go to France and people would stop me and like, oh, Grace. And then, but in the UK, no one bothered me. It was like I could just be totally anonymous and start over. And I think that's partially why I loved it so much. Years later, we are talking about like 3 years ago, a friend of mine from Oxford finally admitted that she used to watch the show with her mom.
Yeah. They don't admit it. They don't admit it.
You didn't tell me. Like, they were so, which they gave that to me. They gave me that year, and I really, really, really appreciate it. It was not
so
in any way
UK.
It was so UK. And it like wasn't a big deal anyway. Okay, all right. But so anyway, what was the original question? Sorry.
Did you miss any food?
Oh, I missed the quality of the food.
Like,
now,
I miss the food. I thought it was just because everyone misses the food where they're from.
No. I mean, first of all, for me, it was like going into, college food, essentially. Oxford College, and we apparently had, my college had like apparently the best reputation for the best food of the colleges, and it still was not great. And then the fact that I was living in the center of a tourist city when the exchange rate was 2 to 1 at the time, and so like even a takeaway pizza was so far beyond my ability to pay for it. And I was like, I was, yeah, food was a big issue that year, and probably the biggest issue. Everything else, I felt I was so comfortable. Nothing has felt more like home than Oxford.
I still miss the food a little bit.
But food's gotten better generally, don't you feel?
Yeah, but I miss things like, I miss being able to go to the refrigerator section at Ralph's and get eggnog. That kind of food. Like the holiday kind of stuff. I get homesick this time of year. Don't even get me started. Okay, so
I once went to Reading to go to a Chili's for a margarita because no one else could figure out how to do a margarita, and I paid like £12 for this margarita. It was like $24 margarita, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good.
I went to a Mexican
but it was like
restaurant.
I'm sitting in a Chili's, so
yeah, it's not the same. I went to a Mexican restaurant in the Channel Islands in Jersey, thinking, wow, I get Mexican food. It was not nowhere near Mexico, I can tell you.
No, we're very spoiled, especially West Coast. Like we're very spoiled with our ethnic food around here.
Yeah, anything in the world. And I grew up with an Italian father that was like a supremely good chef. And my husband is from Scotland, and they're an amazing country. But I think if I was going to choose between Italian cuisine and Scottish cuisine,
yeah,
but it's, where you're from, difference. So we touched briefly on cracks. So is there anything like personality wise or motivation, anything you'd like to work on as a human being?
Of course.
So tell us that journey.
I'm still not good at asking for what I'm worth. I'm still not good at that. That took me a long time. I am still not good at saying no. I'm better. I'm significantly better, but I'm still not good at saying no. I will sacrifice my own, my day off. If something comes up last minute and they really need me, I will be the good person and the people pleaser person. That still hasn't totally died. That needs to die. In those respects, and then I wonder where the time goes, right? And then I wonder why, like, I don't have time to do the things I want, or I don't have time to take care of myself or something. And that's ridiculous. That needs to stop. So yeah, I think, as far as personality goes, I think, when you're talking about things like the insecurity of other people tearing you down, I think maybe my superpower is that I genuinely don't care what other people think of me.
That is a superpower.
Like,
that is a massive superpower.
Yeah.
That's because they say that life imitates art, or art imitates life. I can't remember which way around that is, but you always wonder, because people talk about visualizing and everything, and the things you say yourself, and the people that do affirmations and they look in the mirror and say. So I'm wondering what kind of an impact reading Bloody Psycho Killers out loud 8 hours a day might have visually.
Look, real talk. That's why this job is actually, we have to be very careful with ourselves. I firmly believe that. There was a time, when I was doing a lot of books, a lot of them a year to keep my head above water, you can't live in the drama of those books every 3 days or whatever and just keep cycling through just more catastrophe, more heartbreak, it did take a psychological toll, that's for sure. And I think we just need to remember because it's different from reading books. You are performing books, you are inhabiting the story, and you are, taking on all of the emotions of it. It's like if you were doing
it right, you're in it.
Right. Even as an actor, like I could I'm not methody, but if you're spending a whole day doing crying scenes, like your body feels it at the end of the day. Like I may mentally be able to be like, that's the character, that's not me, but your body has been crying all day.
Yeah,
Like,
your
you feel
cells,
it.
they say that your cells, and it's funny, oh God, I can never remember this person's name. He's famous, Joe DeSanto or something or other, but that your cells, chemical reactions go out when you have emotions and they affect your cells and your body. That's how your body remembers. So, and it's the whole mind-body connection, the somatic thing. But what happens is Joe DeSanto, I can't remember the guy's name. I can remember every single thing he ever taught. Basically, your body becomes, that's why people that have regular negative thoughts or they regularly suffer from anxiety, a certain cascade of chemicals go into your body, and your body becomes addicted to that cascade of chemicals. So you can literally become addicted to negativity, or you can become addicted to anxiety, or you can become addicted to the crying when you're doing the heartfelt books and everything. It's a physical thing because of the chemicals that are being soaked up by your cells in your body. So if you're doing your job right and you're feeling enough to be, vulnerable enough to give the story your all, you are still flooding your body with hormones. Might not be as much, but do you ever find the books find you? Like,
yes,
somebody
for sure.
dies and you end up with a book about death 2 weeks later?
I mean, there was during my YA years when I was doing a lot of YA, and I had just lost my dad, I was getting what I call all the dead sister books. Like all of them were, and there are times like that's very, very difficult and very triggering. And I've learned to, over the years, like if I'm doing it right and if I'm taking care of myself, which is, like I said, a constant struggle, but if I'm approaching my schedule with the top line priority being preserve the flame, like take care of you, then I am building in time to books I know are going to be difficult. I'm going into the studio, actually recording in studio tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, and I know it's going to be difficult, and I'm going into LA to do it, and normally I'd be like calling friends and saying, let's get dinner, I want to see everyone, and I'm just giving myself like, no, I'm just gonna go to be in the hotel, like give myself the possibility that I may just want to be in the hotel that night.
And it's
alone.
The grounding. It's another part of the grounding with the energy. So we do have a couple of questions. I don't want to miss it. Lauren wants to know, how and when did you start writing? Was it as postulated in audiophile behind the mic that she's read so many great books that it was in itself an education to become an author?
So partially that's true. So like I said, I've always been a writer. I went to school for writing. I graduated with a creative writing degree. I graduated with a thesis that was a novel and stories about your hometown, as you're supposed to do. Before you realize no one wants to publish that. And but the main thing was that when I started, so I was like revising that when I first graduated, and I had a historical fiction thing I was working on. And then I also was kind of working on YA. And as I started getting more narration work, I found I couldn't write. I was not good enough at either yet to be able to separate the two. So this is part of what I'm saying. Every 3 days, if I'm in a new voice and I'm in a new setting and I've got a new, I could not like then go back to my 1850 English history that I was writing. I could not switch that on and off. Yeah. So I paused writing. I was doing some screenplay stuff, but mainly I paused prose for like 4 years probably, while I was just narrating solidly. And in the process of doing that, when I was reading all of these books, I came out of a typical creative writing program that's like very snobby and very literary. And I was realizing through the narration, like that there's good writing across all genres, and what makes a book readable versus just what makes it good. And so I learned a lot from narrating as widely as I was narrating. So in that respect, it's true in that like what I learned from doing this job is so much more than what I learned in my degree, but it was something I was always doing.
What would 10-year-old Julia say if you woke up as 10-year-old Julia? I read a book, I'll never forget it, because there's a certain kind of amnesia where you like forget like a certain amount. And this woman woke up, she was like a 40-year-old woman with a kid, and suddenly she was back being 16. And I always wonder what that would be like. What would 10-year-old Julia think if she woke up in your life right now?
I don't think she'd be that surprised.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is pretty much me. Like I said, I would think that I would be doing on camera because that's kind of the only thing I knew existed at the time, and that was what the goal was. But once I explained to her, like, here's what happened, and you were just really tired of putting up with bullshit, I think she'd be like, this is great. Yeah, I can see this too.
I love that. I love that theory. I always wonder because I think she'd given up smoking. A 16-year-old her hadn't.
Yeah.
She'd
Yeah,
weight.
right.
16-year-old her. You look back and you think, wow. So, okay. So if you're talking to the YouTube audience, right, that are going to be watching this in 60 or so years, if you would want them to take one thing away from this call, right, one thing away from like having met you, or if you would want to tell them one important thing, one message, what would you leave people with?
Oh my God, no pressure. I don't know. I'm bad at giving advice because I think that everyone's circumstances are different, which is why I think the only thing that I can say that has served me well is to make sure you are doing what you want to do and to keep checking in with yourself because that can change. Life can change it. Life circumstances can change it. And sometimes we cling to the kind of, especially the type A personalities, we can cling to, but this was the plan. Like, but I'm enacting the plan.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but do you still want the plan?
Yeah, the plan runs you rather than you run the plan.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the checking in has been something that has been really valuable just in my life, that I would sense myself getting frustrated or quickly reactive to things that, I'd see an audition come in, like an email at 7 o'clock at night, and I'd be like, fuck. Like, if that's my response to getting an opportunity, that's not great. Yeah. Like that's probably cause for self-reflection. So that to me is just check in to find out if you're doing what you want to do.
Yeah, I like that. So I'm curious. When we're all living where we're living, and I'm sure we all love where we live, but your ideal place, you're going to wake up in your like dream place, like your dream day that you've worked your entire life, put yourself forward like 20 years or so. Where are you? What's your perfect home like?
That's really tough because I always have like one foot out of this country. Like it wouldn't surprise me if one day I was just like, I'm out.
Switzerland, France.
Yeah, the Netherlands maybe. But I don't know. I mean, I part of the thing is that I don't feel like, honestly, Oxford is up there, very, very much up there. That is the place that I felt
but it
most
feels
at
small.
home.
Does it not feel small to you after living in
No,
America?
I like it.
Yeah?
No, I like that. I like I walked into Santa Fe for the first time like a year and a half ago, and I was like, why do I like this town so much? And I realized it was because it is perfectly walkable, just like Oxford, perfectly walkable.
Yeah.
I miss that about cities in this country. So
oh yes, Barbara, definitely throw the quirky questions at us. You got one?
Yeah.
What is the strangest gift you've ever received?
Strangest gift I've ever received?
Yeah.
Okay, for my 21st birthday, this is probably not the answer, but like off the top of my head, if we're just doing immediate responses, for my 21st birthday, my mom got my astrological chart, a reading of my astrological chart. And at the time I was like, I am in college. Like I could use, I don't know, a gift certificate to a real restaurant or, something. And instead it was like, you should have your astrological chart done. And it was really illuminating, very, very interesting. And so I really appreciated it in hindsight. But at the time I was just like, why though?
Your mom is so cool, in my opinion.
She's awesome. She's awesome.
She got you what you needed rather than what you thought you needed.
There you go.
Right? Those are the best gifts. Yeah. Barbara had another one that I found fascinating because we got some of the greatest answers to it. Have you ever been scared? I think Ann Richardson ended up in a haunted hotel.
Oh, yeah. Physically scared, yes, multiple times. I've been in some hairy situations. And again, it's all kind of tied to, fame and just unnerving sort of things.
Really? Due to fame, feeling threatened and everything due to fame.
Yeah.
Wow.
So physical threat situations, yes, I have been in. But in terms of scared, yeah, sure, yes. Nothing's coming to me though. Maybe I've just blocked it all out.
I mean, I know Gildart said he got mugged. He got like mugged and like gunpoint or knife point or something.
Oh man.
And I think
nothing like that.
Was at a hotel that was haunted. I think you're right. I don't think I could remember. I was deported. I don't know if that counts as scary.
Here's one that's so weird that like I never at any point felt like my life was imperiled, but on a trip from LA to Heathrow, 11-hour flight, there's a passenger sitting in front of me who is clearly, he's already arguing with the flight attendants. And they have a very stern chat with him.
Okay, I would be terrified.
We're going to chat to you.
This is scary.
And I'm like, he's not getting it. Yeah. We take off, and it is 11 hours of belligerence, screaming. He's not well. He's not well. He's saying things that don't make sense. He's older. His wife is sitting like in first class, and so comes back and is also like, you need to stop. And I'm like, why aren't you here? He goes through like 4 seatmates. They just keep rotating people out because he's picking a fight with everyone. He is throwing his drinks. So like, it's 11 hours of this. Like every time I would sleep, he would start yelling again. And we land in Heathrow and the pilot's like, please, everyone stay seated. So the police come on and escort him off. And then as I'm leaving, one of the flight attendants takes me and is like, will you please talk to the police? Because his wife or somebody is saying that we were abusive to him.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I will gladly talk to the police. So I go into like a holding room in Heathrow with like Officer Pete and Officer Paul. And I like give my statement. And then I'm trying to make the last bus to Oxford. And so they're like, thank you for your time. We'll escort you through the airport. So I'm there with my little backpack. And I'm flanked by these 2 officers. And we're just like walking through Heathrow as I'm like trying to catch the bus. It was so that was like a supremely weird level of like 11 hours of being totally confined with someone who was, like I said, I never felt like I was in mortal danger, but like,
you've obviously not read enough psychological thrillers.
Jesus.
You were in danger.
It was rough.
Because somebody that's at that level of out of control, they're unpredictable. Anything can happen at any time. See, that's the thing. You always have to be like, wow. That's scary to me. That's scary because a physical threat is, to me, quick and you're in survival mode and you get out of it.
But also, I think that whole time, like looking back on that time, this is the mid-aughts and like everyone was on high alert, right? Yeah. So even that was how I that was like one of my first trips to England. And the day I left England, my father happened to actually be with me. We woke up at a hotel in London. There was on the news there had been those Mayfair bombings, and he had to get a cab to the airport, and then I was going later, and the security queue at Heathrow was like 4 hours long because, you know, now everyone was on alert. And I was in the line went from like over the sky bridge to the parking garage. And as I'm like on the sky bridge looking down at how the you know, traffic coming in, the drop off departures and arrivals area of Heathrow, I'm looking at this going, if I were a terrorist, I would be just pulling up to this. So I'm on the sky bridge, like, get me off this thing, get me off this thing. By the time I had landed in LA, slept, I woke up the next morning to the news that is exactly how the Glasgow airport was bombed that day.
There was always an ever-present feeling. I remember because I worked, you know, the London terrorists that like just went down the street killing people. I worked right over there. That was like we had literally just moved out of that area. I'd literally just left that job. It makes you feel like anything could happen at any time.
It is. Everything was on edge. And I mean, I think that's sort of how we feel now in this country with the gun violence and the mass shootings. It's like, you know, you walk into a mall and you're like, okay. I mean, there's definitely parallels to that, but yeah, just a very odd time.
Low level kind of hypervigilance. I think everyone.
Yeah, sorry, that turned into like a kind of dissertation on mid-aughts UK security threats, but
no, it's very cool. I like it. We got to have a cliffhanger. Not a cliffhanger. Whatever. I'm not a writer, so. But I had a point. So thank you so much, Julia. This has been pure joy. You guys, shout out the name. It's Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Amazing. I think, you know, like amazing. And the narrator, one of our favorites. And another shout out, we've got him here, Landon Beach.
Yes.
Book, Narrator by Scott Brick. Narrated.
I can't wait to listen.
They're two wonderful books, you guys. And as I said, I'm sticking to my promise. If the book is about a narrator, I'm doing the promo. I'm breaking my own no promo rule because they need to start writing about us. We kept the world up during COVID.
Yes, I agree. And I think that, you know, again, this is a very invisible job. And if we're going to keep this industry going in the face of all of the technology that's coming, we have to raise the profile of the narrator in the public consciousness. We have to let people know what we're doing, why we do it, what the work is. So I'm very keen to do that.
Well, you've inspired me, and you're a beautiful actress. I hope that doesn't make you uncomfortable being too fanness, but you're a really beautiful actress and a wonderful narrator, and I look forward to listening to your book. So I wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys. Bye. Thanks for joining. Bye.
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 Thank you.